tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
You guys, it's Takeover Respect.
Oh, we're talking about the show?
Yeah.
I watched the wrong thing then.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Breaking Ground after show right here on AfterBuzz TV. This is the season finale of the first season of Breaking Ground.
It came on us kind of sudden, really.
It's been an amazing 12 weeks of 10 episodes.
Yeah.
No, it's been 12 weeks of 10 episodes.
So that's like a typical season of a show.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for first season, 10's pretty customary.
And they're already filming more, so we will be back. But
at some point.
No time flat,
before we talk
probably.
about wrapping up this show, let's get to introductions. I'm Cathy Kelley, and sitting next to me, Brandon Taylor.
Greetings from Los Angeles. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. It was a
birthday.
It was a milestone.
It was a birthday.
A birthday.
Then again, most weekends are.
Well, whatever. You know, you celebrate any way you celebrate.
But those are unbirthdays.
Happy birthday.
Happy unbirthday. Why did that moped try and run me over just now?
Sitting next to the birthday boy, Mark Donica.
Hi, Cathy Kelley. It's been last week was weird because not only was there very few folks at the studio, but we did the show by our twosomes. It was weird.
Last week you said I was on vacation and I was working.
Yeah.
Well, workcation.
Team no days off.
Well, yeah, okay.
Workcation? How is it a workcation? I didn't even see New York.
Well, as long as you're away from your home, like then it's a vacation, but you're working away from home. So
no, it is
workcation.
because it literally is a vacation because you vacated your place of living.
I was working
You vacated
more
the premises.
than I work here. I was working like 16-hour days. So
It's that damn moped again.
Team no days off.
Sure, let's do that.
No days off.
But anyways, this episode was kind of wrapping up everything that we've seen over the season. Even though we knew a lot of the people that we saw in Breaking Ground and were introduced to even more, this is kind of the conclusion of the story arc that they've showed us, even though this is real life.
Really, it was just to be continued.
It is to be continued, but I think that there were a lot of things that were wrapped up, and it seems like a lot of things progressing forward. Like it was cool to see.
It definitely had a story arc, and it sort of showed that life goes on and things go forward. And some people ended up not reaching a full, well-rounded conclusion, but you definitely got to see Tyler Breeze come
That was the
all
biggest thing that I was mentioning.
That was the only finality that we got.
Right.
Is someone after all of this, after years of being at since the Performance Center opened, years of being at FCW, he has now gone successfully. He is one of these success stories of going from this developmental to NXT to now being on the main roster.
Yeah, I mean, even just the act of debuting is considered a success. It really is, because you've managed to make it through all of your training, your basic level stuff, and now you're actually on television, which is what you're supposed to be doing. Now, no matter how long he's on television, no matter what he actually succeeds in doing on TV, he is a success.
Yeah.
He really is.
I'll agree with that.
So, I mean, we'll get more into detail about him getting called up and our thoughts on that, but we started off this episode with Apollo Crews getting advice from Triple H, and this is something that we've seen in weeks past about how they wanted him to go bigger with his entrances. Now they're asking him to do a new finisher in his match at NXT Respect, or TakeOver Respect. So was that something that you guys, when we were watching him debut and seeing his first match or two, was that something that you guys wanted, a different finisher, or are you happy with?
It was for me.
Yeah.
When I was like, cool, but we've seen people get up from splashes, because that's essentially what it was. It was a splash with flair.
He's a standing moonsault. I mean, granted, he's a big guy, but he's not the biggest guy. I've actually seen bigger guys do standing
Flipping
moonsaults.
Terex, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that surprised. Sure, it's impressive, but I don't believe that anybody would be actually counted for a 3 count following that particular move.
Way too easy.
And that's something, it's a move that he can keep in his repertoire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, like you're saying, that you don't see it as his finisher.
No, I think it's a great signature. Great signature move to see a guy like that hit that particular move, but it's not the finish.
Yeah. What did you think of, there was a quote that Triple H said of, there are so many guys that we've brought in from indie, like they're indie wrestlers, they've already established themselves, and they're so worried about changing up from what they're used to doing the past few years when they've been building themselves.
There's a comfort in establishing yourself and knowing what you're capable of and what you're used to doing. There's a comfort in that. So changing that is kind of a very uncomfortable thing, and especially when you're in this surrounding that has you on eggshells basically all the time. There are people baying at the door for your job. So you're always constantly worried about what's going to happen, and you don't necessarily want to step out of the box that you've created because you know that's what you're good at.
You
but
know
at the
it's
same
over.
time, you gotta push just a little bit harder.
It was funny, the parallels between guys on the indies still wanting to do what they've built, and then going back to the beginning of Breaking Ground this season and seeing Josh not even wanting to give up the Yeti character.
Right. I mean, it's all very comfort based, and it's you see it as going to your strength.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm good at. This is what I was doing and what I think I can continue to do. But to a larger degree, it ends up being something that holds you back instead of pushing you forward.
I really liked what he was saying about Apollo came to him for advice and said, you know, I was so nervous about doing that, but the fact that you're giving me that leeway, that, I mean, it spoke volumes of, you know, Triple H was saying that so many people are doing what they think they want, or that what they think the WWE wants from them, as opposed to trying out new things. And NXT was supposed to be that place. You're able to try out new things, and if it doesn't work, you know, you have next week.
It's better to go too far than to not go far enough, it seems. They seem to be happier with the idea of bringing somebody back a touch instead of having to push them out there.
Even with, you know, that constant fear in the back of your head of, yeah, there are people gunning for your spots. That shouldn't be a fear. That should be motivation to do better each week.
But people respond to that in different ways. Some people hold back and really hold on to the thing that they think is their strength, and others really try and find new strengths. They push themselves forward.
Those
to
are the
achieve
people that
even
are
more.
successful, in my opinion.
Pretty much, that's usually how it goes.
A really entertaining discussion.
Sorry, you're just like sitting back.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, just enjoy it. I'm checking with the chat every now and again. They're having their own discussion, so it's
surprise.
nice. Yeah, well.
But that's, I mean, like, even on the main roster, that's what we've seen be successful recently, is the guys that are taking the risks. The New Day, like, that was a huge risk, and that was something that they really believed in. And when they were able to show that on the main roster, the fans really responded.
Yeah, and it seemed like the back wasn't the booking, or whatever you want to call it, management wasn't saying don't do that. They actually let them run with it.
I think at first they were saying don't do that, but then once they were allowed to run with it, it got over very quickly, as those 3 members knew it would, and now they're able to continue running with it.
I think it might also be a way of the head office, whatever you want to call them. It seemed like, okay, try what we want you to do first, and if that doesn't feel comfortable, make it a little bit more comfortable. But we're not seeing that with as many groups or as many individuals.
And also there is that argument of, if something is written for you, no matter what it is, whether you believe in it or not, that is your job to get it over. That's why you are hired.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. And it takes a special individual to take something that's written for them even if it's written poorly and managed to get it over with the audience, sometimes it's a little too difficult if something is too flimsy that the performer can't get it over. But it's a give and take. It takes both sides. It takes somebody with an idea and then somebody to actually flesh out that idea and create something.
Yeah. Let's take a moment to time travel in our brains back to NXT TakeOver Respect.
Let's do that.
And I believe we watched it all together.
We did.
Yeah,
That was
we
the
were.
first live special in a long time that we had all watched together.
But incredible matches. That was the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, which they showed a lot of in this episode, and the backstory behind it, which is, you know, we saw the actual trophy, and we saw Cody and his family and like everyone else there in that moment, and what went into you know, them going out in the ring and introducing this as a thing that they were going to do not just this year but for years in the future.
Mm-hmm. And it was nice seeing even just Stephanie's reaction. Mm-hmm. Well, it was very quick, just like, can I see it, can I peek, and then just seeing it and then getting a little bit of emotion in her eyes. It was pretty cool.
It was also cool for fans to see the behind the scenes of takeovers, because we know that on tapings, a lot more people come down to to Full Sail as far as corporate goes. And then for this, it looked like everyone is there. We saw Michael Cole, we saw Michael Hayes, we saw everyone backstage. And so, you know, there is a lot more pressure on the people that are performing, but also a lot more opportunity to, you know, get advice from people who have been in the industry for that long.
Right, and it's such a big company, everything's so spread out, but when you actually have all the people that matter in one place, you actually have a chance to impress them. You actually know that their eyes are going to be on you, so it's added pressure, but it's like, now I can actually have these people look at my work. Like, I know they're looking at my work because they're here actually physically looking at me. So it's got to be just a fantastic opportunity. You always want those eyes on you, especially if it's the people in the company who create the company.
Yeah. And I think they mentioned it on this episode, but going back one takeover to Takeover Brooklyn was really the first time that a lot of the performers, it was one of their first road trips, not their first one, but one of the first times that the wrestlers at NXT really saw the impact that they were having outside of Florida. And it wasn't just, okay, we're doing a show in Winter Park, and then we're doing a show in Tampa, and we're doing a show in these other towns in Florida. It's, this reach is worldwide. And they sold out I think 13,000, 15,000 person arena in Brooklyn, and then coming back from that with the co-main event being a women's match, to then, you know, Sasha and Bayley impressing there enough to be given the first main event women's match in all of WWE history for a live event.
Yeah. It's...
Or for a special event.
A special or a pay-per-view, they still call it. I think
It's hard to drop that term.
It is. It's so... It doesn't
ingrained
even...
in our
Live on
minds.
pay-per-view!
It doesn't mean what it means anymore.
No.
It's a phrase that
like
means
a
live
hoverboard
special.
isn't a hoverboard, but we
We're
still
not
call it a
talking
hoverboard.
We're not
Right.
talking about hoverboards. This isn't some Sam Roberts podcast, some Sam Roberts show on
I've just been
Sirius
saying,
XM.
there are a couple indie guys who I told them to get a hoverboard and use it in the ring, and then more recently, I think a couple weeks ago, there was a video of a guy using a hoverboard in the ring. And I thought that New Day would be the first ones to do it, but they didn't.
They're so freaking expensive. And now apparently they
$500.
light on fire!
If you get the $100 cheap ones, they light on fire. But if you're not getting your own pyro, why not?
Free pyro with every hoverboard.
Exactly.
God, why? Wrestling.
So let's talk about taking our minds back to this 30-minute Iron Man match between Sasha Banks and Bayley.
That was, and still is, I mean, probably the best, you know, non-singles match of the year, of the past 5 years, the past 10
Gimmick match.
years.
They're
right. Or non-singles, which
non-singles.
I kind of go as being, special event type match.
Yeah.
WWE.com released their 25 top matches from 2015.
Two of them
and
better have been Sasha Bailey.
the second one was Sasha Banks and Bailey.
What was number 1?
The triple threat.
Was it Rollins, Brock, and Cena?
I believe so.
That was a good one. That was really good.
That was good. That was really done.
But definitely well deserved, and not just putting themselves on the map, but putting women's wrestling on the map.
Absolutely, it shows that the models that they had been hiring really aren't conducive to a better product, and that a better product comes with better professionals. And so we have at the best possible women's wrestling now in this company, and I think it's going to help progress women's wrestling in the company even further as far as the
wrestling
main
in
roster.
general.
Yeah,
really?
Why not?
Because it was one thing where the main roster would have to feel like they would have to compete with the NXT Takeover specials, but now everybody has to compete with that Sasha Banks and Bailey match.
Yeah.
Ever since Takeover Brooklyn, everybody went, name me a better match this year.
But
try to make a better match this year.
Let's talk about the NXT panel before Takeover Brooklyn, where Sasha Banks said it's not a competitiveness. Yes, there is a competitive aspect to it since we're all here and we want that main spot.
Of course.
But having a good match makes you want to do better. If you see two other guys having a great match, it pushes you to be that much better and have that much greater of a match.
You agree with that?
And I'd say there's something special about seeing two women who are able to bring that level of wrestling, period. Back when I first started training, we always used to steal from Japanese women's wrestling. Now I think people are going to be stealing from this because it's just that good, and there's something that is just special about this.
No, I remember when we were watching and you said, oh, I'm going to remember that. A couple times.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you can't match their passion. That plays a strong part in it. But the fact that they had years under their belt before they ever went to NXT, and we have some news which we'll talk about in our NXT after show, but there will be a lot of parallels, I think, between our Breaking Ground after show and our NXT after show.
It'll be sort of part 2.
Yeah.
I was just going to say something and now I've lost it.
Monster.
My mind.
We do have to talk about, unfortunately, there were some injuries this year, and one of the ones that they highlighted in Breaking Ground was Sami Zayn's injury. He said that he's never spent more than 4 weeks out of the ring, and he had to, because of this freak injury of him just throwing his arms up like he did every single night when he got that opportunity to have the title match against John Cena in his hometown.
Yeah.
It completely derailed his momentum.
You just look at him, you look at what happened to Dana Brooke, perfect back bump, ended up tearing part of her rotator cuff and then part of her pectoral. So it's the little things that you don't think anything of.
Yeah.
It just adds up little by little, and then it happens, and that's it. What are you gonna do?
But there are so many people that I think would get so discouraged by that, or they wouldn't have the drive to come back from that kind of injury. And he's one of those other people that you can't doubt that he has that passion for the industry, because it seemed like he wanted to come back a lot sooner than he was actually healed.
Well, he's already put in a 14-year commitment to this business overall. I bet he was just chomping at the bit the entire time.
Well, it's so easy for people to give up, though, after an injury.
Luckily, though, this was his first one. Usually after your first big injury, you just go, well, I'm just going to come back. It's after maybe the second or the third that you start to go, oh, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Well, that's also the benefit of working for the WWE, I figure, is like, man, once I make it to the WWE, I will be able to have the time to recover from an injury, as opposed to I gotta make that money.
Yeah. I mean, it's the contract sure is nice. It's nice to have guaranteed money because I know so many guys that have had to tape like every single joint in their body before a wrestling match just because everything hurts, but they don't have the opportunity or the option to not go out there that night. You have to make that money. So you cover yourself in tape, look like a mummy except for your face, which is totally fine.
Could still sell at least.
gotta sell them shirts, baby. So it's nice to have a place like the Performance Center, like WWE is providing for all of these professionals who can actually put health first, put health and wrestling above having to make the money through whatever means necessary, like we most certainly do.
But as we saw, getting injured, even if you are getting paid, isn't a good thing. Like with Cal Bishop, like he was injured and he was released because of that injury.
Right. Well, he was released because it was injury, then injury, then injury on the shelf all the time, and possibly no prospect of getting better. That's what the company saw. It's this guy who cannot perform, who has not debuted, had a full debut on television, and is foreseeably not going to. And they have to cut their losses. Unfortunately, they're a company like any other company, and bottom line is what it is.
Speaking of injuries, let's go back to Dana Brooke's injury. You already explained what happened to her. She was training with Asuka, and then ended up having to get it checked out. And she finally, we saw this culminating in the end of at TakeOver Respect, she had her match against Asuka.
Yeah. They hyped it a little bit more dramatically like we thought they would, but wasn't it something else that was linked to her injury, not the first bump that we saw?
I don't remember.
I mean, it could also be several things that
just
lead to one injury. Yeah.
Right. It could have been something smaller that got bigger over time. It could have been anything.
It seems like the trainers are very, like, they're taking extra precautions with all of the wrestlers, especially there. We saw this a couple weeks ago with Matt Bloom talking to Carmella of, your health always comes first in these situations. So we'd rather you take it slow than push through this injury. We even saw the trainers meet with Dana Brooke's mom prior to the match to assure
That's pretty adorable.
So, yeah.
That's sort of what happens with a bigger company is the scrutiny on them is bigger, so they're sort of forced to take the precautions and take care of their employees like WWE is now, because you see so many lawsuits that keep popping up now and again of them not taking care of their performers and then a performer dying or being unable to work, and this creates lawsuits. But if they cover their butts enough, there won't be any lawsuits. And we saw them taking care of people on this show in particular, and I think that helps their just the way their company is viewed as a whole. It's a very smart move as far as the politics of business are concerned. It's just a good idea,
and it's going a little bit farther than the rehab for any previous employee. Like they keep going more. It's definitely a great business decision, but on top of it, it just makes you look like a nice company.
Yeah, they don't publicize that as much, but I think that's always just a nice thing to remember, that they do take care of people.
And apparently Dana did tweet that she was cleared, doing great, and is looking forward to 2016.
Good. Yeah.
So whether she'll be a part of the tapings tomorrow, we will find out.
I mean, I was just watching, after seeing the injury thing and then watching the match again, and she took that same butt bump from Asuka, she got scared for a second and put her arms up to brace Asuka, which is not the right way to do that. You can get a different injury doing that.
I was going to say, sometimes
just looking at that going, no, stop.
When you do sustain an injury prior to that, you're a little bit more fearless and you're less likely to get injured because you don't tense up in those moments. And yeah, she could have totally messed up her elbow just there. Hyperextended it to her tricep. She could have done a lot of damage. But luckily it didn't happen, so we got the sort of the happier ending out of all this.
Yeah.
She was still hurt. She did have to have surgery, but the match went well. So that's what matters most.
God bless us, everyone.
Everyone.
We saw kind of a wrap up with Apollo Crews and Tyler Breeze. We've talked about both of them on this episode already, but saw their match. We saw Tyler Breeze getting called up to the main roster, which is a really cool moment. I believe I don't know if it was after their taping. They had a room at Full Sail where everyone just kind of goes in, and Triple H gave a speech about how much this meant to him and to the WWE universe. But then that is when they announced to the entire room that Tyler Breeze was finally getting called up.
James Storm in that room.
He was there
very, very prominently in the first row.
Mm-hmm.
They said, I believe Shatner said that after every taping they have a meeting, whether it's Triple H leading it or not, though I figured he would because he's down for all of the tapings anyway, to kind of talk about the show and where the company's moving forward from there. So it's cool that they made it a group thing, like a group graduation.
And everyone was so happy for him.
Yeah, how could you not? Scott Dawson looked like the most elated close-up that we got, which was kind of adorable.
This is one of the moments where it breaks kayfabe, but as a fan, you can't I got so many tweets about, is Cathy crying? And I was 12 times during this episode, but it's also one of those things where this show makes anyone who's a wrestling fan want to work for the company. I can't see how it wouldn't.
Yeah, it really does look like such a great environment to be in, because it looks like everybody supports each other.
Yeah.
I mean, even outside of the drama that was attempting to be created through this show, just to spice things up a little bit, you could tell everybody genuinely cares about everybody else, and everybody wants to see everyone succeed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
great
best environment.
Yeah.
Great environment.
They showed a lot of the 4 horsewomen getting called up and wrapping up Bayley's story about how clearly her goal is to go to the main roster, but she is still, wants to make an impact down at NXT.
She's still got to bring up the next crop of women. Mm-hmm. You just can't bring up all 4 of them. Somebody has got to be left behind to sort of...
I think they could have, but every wrestling fan who's a fan of NXT or the main roster product, they know there's a risk with Bayley, just like there was with Tyler Breeze or with anyone that goes up to the main roster of, is it going to work?
Yeah.
We saw this with Emma of, is it going to work? And maybe it just wasn't that time. Maybe it wasn't the character. Sometimes, and I tweeted out this quote, but sometimes you're ready for it, but the world just needs to catch up.
Yeah, there is such a thing as being ahead of your time. I don't know if that applies to Bayley, though.
I believe if, we're making parallels, I believe that the world wasn't ready for Natty. I think that she is...
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
She was the forefront of this whole Divas revolution. She was not the model that came in. She was the girl that had been wrestling and wanted to be a wrestler her entire life. She worked for years as a wrestler in Canada, Japan, everywhere, and she fought so hard to be in WWE. If you look at her Table for 3 episode, she was talking about how many times she applied, how many times she pestered people, how she would have worked for the company for free. She finally got there, and honestly, I don't believe that she got her time to shine. She had an incredible match with Charlotte a few takeovers ago, but since then, she should have been, Divas champ several times over.
I agree. And you can sort of throw Beth Phoenix in with that
I
as
would,
well.
100%.
Yeah, but even Beth got to hold the title in a very prominent spot.
Yeah.
It's just, when you are so unique like that, you have no one else to play with.
Yeah.
So it's just a tough spot.
But now that the roster, not that it's saturated with women who grew up in the industry, but you have Bayley, who has wanted to be a wrestler since she was 10 years old. You have Sasha, who's wanted to be a wrestler forever. Becky Lynch, who started training when she was 16. You have all of these girls that are that passionate and have very similar stories to Natty, but it's finally that time where the fans have caught up and we're all accepting it and embracing it.
Yeah.
Now the locker room needs to catch up too. Because now there's just a higher expectation that the girls are really training towards, with Cameron, with Eva Marie, everybody wanting to start down at NXT because they know the benefits of having that extra training instead of just put them on the road and let them wing it. So with that, I think this year is when the actual Divas Revolution is going to start, and we're going to start seeing a big expansion.
Right. I mean, I think the talent is really there now more than ever, and I think that the company just needs to figure out a way to utilize that talent to the best possible end. I think the women can be a very viable money-making tool if used in the right way.
Yeah.
And I have to say, NXT fans are so passionate that I think we want to see people succeed. We want to see it work out, no matter who it is when they come out. And there have been so many examples of this, of, you know, people that might not get over on the main roster because the fans are not necessarily, like, a lot of them are tuning in every single week, but there are a lot more people who are, you know, WWE fans that don't watch every single episode. They don't watch all of the Raws, all of the SmackDowns, all of the main events, every single thing for the product, whereas NXT fans, I feel like, watch everything. Like, they watch everything NXT.
Closer to accurate. Yeah.
Which, yes, there's less hours in the day
but it's also,
of product, but
it's also isolated. It's here's an hour. You know it's going to be a solid hour, and you can put that away. You can just be like, I can spend an hour. I can do while I'm prepping for work in the morning, while I'm kind of dying down in the night, because everybody's attached to this. They don't have Raw on your phone yet. No. So once Raw is streaming day and date with the television airings, then there may be a little, that rabid audience may come back. But for now, NXT is taking advantage of the revolution that is pocket technology.
Yeah, and I think that the fans that watch NXT are the same fans who are going to go out of their way to be informed on all events in the wrestling world. People are going to watch New Japan, they're going to watch ROH, they're going to watch TNA, they're going to watch a lot more than just WWE product, whereas a lot of people who watch just the main roster, that's all they watch. That's all the content, wrestling-wise, that they're going to really absorb.
I mean, and speaking to the multi-brand aspect of viewing, we're going to talk a lot more about that in our NXT after show in an hour and a half, 2 hours. So
very, very
to say the
excited
very
to talk
least.
about that. Anything else you guys want to mention from this finale of Breaking Ground?
We didn't get a wrap up with ZZ or Josh. We didn't get any sort of tag.
No, yeah.
We saw Josh in the crowd. We didn't see ZZ in the crowd.
I know that this is something that happens with all reality shows, is they film hours and hours and hours of content, and then, you know, they could film 72 hours of content and it get edited down to half an hour. So they have, reality. I'm sure, like, they could have done just a 24-hour day, like, GoPro in a room and, like, shown everything that happens, but that's not going to be, you know, they're just never going to release that.
It's not TV.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, while we didn't get a wrap up to the story, it seemed like the producers were kind of figuring out what story they wanted to tell with all of this.
Yeah.
And there are only so many people you can feature. We did get to see a little bit of Baron Corbin today.
A little bit of Tino.
And and there was a really cool moment before the women's match between Bayley and Sasha, where we saw the other 4 horsewomen. Like, we saw Becky Lynch was there, we saw Charlotte was there, and, you know, walking around backstage, being in the audience. There are moments like that, but it kind of gets brushed over because you only get 5 seconds of it, you know?
Yeah. Right. That's why I say it felt like this whole season sort of wrapped up so quickly, as they kind of took their time with other arcs, and then it just kind of snapped off there at the end.
But that's also smart of, like, you leave people wanting more.
Exactly. This season felt like a first episode. And when I say that, this is a lead-in, and with each episode had such a different format.
Yeah.
A couple kind of mirroring each other. But with that, this entire thing has been a pilot for an extended stay on the WWE Network. Since it's their production, their editing, their network, their everything.
They can do what they want.
They do what they want. So with that, this whole season has been, all right, if you like that, we're going to come back with maybe 13 episodes, 16 episodes, 20 episodes, whatever, and it's going to be a bunch of micro seasons. Like South Park does 2 10-episode seasons a year.
Right.
I was going to say, going back to the E60 special on ESPN, they taped things with, I think, 5 or 6 of the talent down at NXT, and they only showed 3 of them, and then they released an extra 1 or 2
videos
online.
Yeah, I thought that was just interesting the way they decided to do that. But it just shows you that I think the audience is there, and there's enough that can be created content-wise that it doesn't just have to be one 1-hour show. It can actually be an entire season if you do it right.
Just like NXT, we've got a revolving door of people here. So it's going to be, next season maybe the final arc of Baron Corbin before he gets called up, or whatever, just as an example. Here's a guy there, or like 5 seasons in, Tino finally gets like his takeover main event or something. Whatever. Just ballparking here.
Right.
So or New finally debuts at the beginning of season 3. Like, it's the fact that we have so many straws to pick from. They can do whatever they want, and they're going to, and everybody's going to eat it up. And there's been no Breaking Ground merchandise. But there's been a hell of and that's a funny thing. There was so much Tough Enough merchandise, and different designs and shirts and stuff.
But that was also because that was a show that aired on USA.
Yeah,
right,
but
that was a network show.
But for something like this, where they control everything, you figure you can just pop out a shirt every week or so.
There isn't just a Breaking Ground shirt?
No.
Huh. Why? Okay, all right. That's their
something branding.
That's their call.
That's them. So, that's the thing where this is the test. This is the first episode. So when episode 2 launches, season 2 launches, series 2 launches, wherever you're from, they're going to be like, well, here's everything from season 1 that worked. Here's who we're going to be pushing. And also just in terms of every takeover, there's new merchandise for every person. Then you start peppering in the Breaking Ground and filling that out a little bit more.
I loved how they wrapped up this entire episode, showing a little bit of TakeOver London and the matches that happened there, selling out 7 shows in 7 days, and then one of the success stories, which I guess we didn't mention as much, was Jordan and Gable. And how, they lost their, or they didn't get their, I can't think while you're doing that.
Neither can I.
They didn't get, I'm taking off my headphones because I can't hear.
I'm done. I'm done. Go ahead.
They didn't get their merch in time. So, their merch, their gear in time. And then they were like worried about that, but they still got themselves over in the gear that they had, and ending this episode with the crowd just electric in London, chanting what Mark was chanting and distracting me. But it was cool. That was a cool moment to see. And
yeah, it's funny you see the talent. We didn't really mention Corbin after the match that he had with Rhino against Jordan and Gable. And he just talking about what
Corbin losing and how he
emotional roller coaster it is. And I think that it just sort of that's life. That's wrestling. It's the emotional roller coaster.
Gable and Jordan being so happy after losing. Like, they were like, we lost, but that was the best moment of my entire life. Like, saying that is like, you see the passion there, and you see that they're going to succeed. And like, I mean, we know, obviously, spoiler alert, what happens in the coming weeks, but like, they are so over. And I think, one of the great things about NXT is they shape their product over what the fans want.
Right. They actually listen to their audience.
We're seeing more of Jordan and Gable because of the reactions that they've been getting, and they deserve those reactions because they're putting in the work.
Yeah.
And because we got the little bit of wrap above and at TakeOver London, and we got that stuff that just happened at the end of the year, I don't think we're going to see season 2 until after WrestleMania or summer.
Whoa. Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, I know they're shooting now. But
started shooting.
Yeah, they started shooting season 2. But then we saw footage that they could have been shooting at the end of this episode, because
and they did an update, so it's hard to believe that
they would start next month, 2 months from now, when it was already just updated. Then it's like, oh well, then why stop if we were going to get that?
If they know the specific people that maybe they've picked out 5 people that they're going to focus on in this next season, like we had a handful from this past season, maybe they're just going to have the stories play out longer of, this is going for 4 months as opposed to over the course of 2 months.
Right. I mean, they can record as much as they want. The final product's going to be chipped down to whatever it is, but they just can record all the content and then edit it from there.
Yeah.
So they can essentially film for as long as they want. They can film from now to 6 months from now, and then you'll have a show.
Or they could just film one day, and people would still watch it.
Yeah.
So.
Like a 24, like a season of 24, but Breaking Ground. If they did something crazy, and like if it was a travel day, or if it was a takeover day, and you did just a 24 hours. Well, they already did. Day? I'm totally kidding. They totally did with the WWE 24 Brooklyn special.
Oh yeah.
I.e., I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay. Well, obviously, this is the point that I was getting to of NXT fans will watch whatever because we want more content. Thank you guys so much for joining us this past season for Breaking Ground.
Jesus Christ.
Of course, we will be back next season whenever they choose to air that. Again, thank you guys for being a part of it, Brandon and Mark. If you guys want to, chat with us in the meantime, talk NXT, which we are going to be taping our after show for in about an hour and a half. But check out that. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts were on this episode, and then where can they follow you on Twitter, social media, Brandon?
Well, I would like to mirror Cathy's thanks to all of you. Hosting this as Brandon Taylor has been a very surreal experience, and I'm glad the season's come to a close. I need a break.
You need a break from being you.
Need a break from being me.
To all of the people that don't know who didn't know who Brandon Taylor was till this show, welcome to this world that I've been living in for the past couple of years. This world
years? We've known each other for like 14 years now.
But the 6 years where the Hobo has also existed.
Oh, yes. But you and I have known each other for 14 years.
A little while. Just been a little while.
And if you would like to follow me and ask me questions about wrestling, I can give you honest-to-God answers about training.
You will.
At CWFH Training on Twitter. Buy our shirts, nxteam.spreadshirt.com is where you get the shirts.
Thinking of doing a New Year's sale, because why not?
Why not?
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at SoapboxMark. A whole bunch of stuff happening in 2016 at AFTERBUZZ and with the three of us. We're very excited for when we can actually talk about it. But speaking of things coming in 2016 that we're going to talk about, NXT. It's going to be, we're going to stay 6 p.m. Wednesdays. It's not going to be a double-decker with us anymore, but we're going to, since it's been sort of a review show, we're going to be talking about a lot about the year ahead and the year that was. So 6 p.m. tonight, and if this is it's essentially going to be a news and gossip episode. But if you're listening to this pre-recorded, we have an NXT show, and listen to us there, nxteam.spreadshirt.com, at SoapboxMark, Cathy Kelley.
You can follow me on Twitter at Catherine Kelley, on Instagram at Cathy Kelley, and as I said, the reason I was gone last week was because I was working on Sam Roberts' show, so check out those episodes on demand. He also released a podcast today with Adam Cole as his guest, so that's a great listen. Make sure to download it, tell him I sent you, and thank you guys again for watching. We will see you again for the NXT show later tonight.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Bye. See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.